Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Grief, the emotional shitstorm you never signed up for. I'm your host, Margaret Dennis. I'm a women's life empowerment and holistic grief coach, and I work primarily with executive women who've been through grief and trauma and help them to heal so that they can move forward into their next best step in their life. I also recently have started coaching men, so that is a new avenue for me as well. Today, I am very pleased to welcome a friend of mine, Tom Dietert, and he's going to come on today and talk a lot about his experience with grief and his journey and what he does within his coaching practice. Before we get started, Tom, I'm just going to read your bio so people know who we are, who you are, and why it's important that you're here today. So here we go. Tom Dietert is a dentist and certified high performance coach who knows what it's like when life blows up in your face. He's walked through years of high functioning depression, emotional burnout, and the silent weight of grief, including losing his mom suddenly at 74 and watching his dad disappear to Alzheimer's long before he died. Those losses, combined with the pressure to keep functioning professionally, became a breaking point and ultimately the catalyst for his own healing. Out of that journey, Tom created Revolutionize, a coaching practice helping professionals stop just surviving and start living with clarity, energy, and courage again. He's also the voice behind Out Here, a podcast about men's mental health, rural life, and rebuilding a meaningful life after 50. Tom, Tom shows up today not pretending to have all the answers, but ready to talk about the messy, necessary journey of finding yourself after loss, burnout, and the shitstorms you never signed up for. Welcome to the podcast, Tom.
Well, hi, Margaret. Thank you so much for inviting me onto your show. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. And for anyone who's listening for today and watching, just a quick little side note. Tom and I met a few years ago when we were both going through the high performance coach with Ryan Matthews program. And so that's how we connected. And it's been interesting following each other's journey because we were both on a learning and healing journey at the same time. So it's been really amazing to watch each other move through that process. And I'm very, very honored to have you here today. So thank you. All right, let's dive in. Thank you so much for being here again. All right, first question I've got for you. So I hope you're ready. You've spoken openly about losing your mom suddenly and your dad to Alzheimer's. So how did these experiences shape the way you understand grief? And how do they inform the way that you now help others navigate major life transitions?
It's very safe for me to say that uh, I wasn't ready, prepared. I wasn't dealing with it. I was um, numbing it, avoiding it, running away from it, and it came back and hit me square, right between the eyes, in the weirdest possible ways. From the littlest things like after, for example, after my mom died, one of the things we used to do down at the cottage, usually on Sundays, it would be have a little barbecue lunch, just barbecue some hot dogs, have some chocolate milk, and sit outside on the deck. And then, you go to cook hot dogs and you find yourself going, like you start almost to tear up and realize that you can't have it with your mom on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Like the weirdest reminders just brought out the unreconciled or unprocessed grief, and it could also come out in bouts of anger, um, something that would happen and that shouldn't normally make you as upset as it did, and just boom, you go from 0 to 1,000, and you're only supposed to go to 100.
Mm-hmm.
With dealing with the a trigger that really, if you look back at it, was completely benign, insignificant, but it just was the tipping point for grief to come out in a very hurtful way.
Mm-hmm. And that is so common. So I'm really glad that you shared that because I think a lot of people who go through grief, they do experience those triggers, whether it's cooking hot dogs or you hear a song on the radio, or you smell a perfume. And then that anger issue is very, very common as well, because I think so often we're trying to hold our emotions in and then anger starts building up and it's just like, oh, it's right on the surface and it's like our gatekeeper emotion. So we'd rather be angry than sad, right? And so it starts, I know I experienced the exact same thing. Like my patience was zero and anger. Yeah, it seemed very disproportionate to the situation. So thank you for sharing that, because I think a lot of the listeners would actually relate to that, and it normalizes that journey of grief and the things that can happen along the way.
The
So
irony,
yeah,
the
go ahead.
irony there was one of the people I lost early in my life was my older brother. He was hit by a car crossing the street in Toronto, Mississauga to be more specific, and uh, only two of my friends at the time. I was basically 17 and he was 25.
Mm,
Only two of my friends came to the wake and funeral out of my group of friends, and out of those two. Um, Weeks afterwards, one of them, his name was Wayne. He was the one I lashed out at
hmm
weeks later for again for a totally insignificant whatever, and I didn't get the chance to apologize until probably like 10 or 15 years later when we happened to bump into each other in Toronto, and I just felt like such an idiot
hmm
looking back at it. So
Yeah.
really weird.
Yeah. Weird, yeah. And when we're in that moment too, we do it and then there's instant regret, right? It's like, oh my God, I didn't mean to do that. Or, and then you've already said what you're going to say or do what you're going to do. And so it's already out there. And then we're like, how do you apologize? How do you go forward with that? Especially if they're not willing to hear it or they walk away or however that situation goes. I think we hold a lot of self-judgment of ourselves and how we handle our grief too. So I'm really glad you had the opportunity to apologize though, because that's a really big step in the healing process too. When we've done things like that. I know when you get into the 12-step program, which is totally unrelated to what we're doing here. But that's a big part of it too, is going back and making those apologies. And yeah, so I'm glad you had that opportunity. When you did that, did you feel lighter afterwards when you were able to clear
Oh
that?
yes, I
Mm-hmm.
definitely felt I was more like me again, if
Mm,
that makes sense. Like
yeah.
who I want to really be in life, how I want to show up in life. That's how I felt more like I was being when I finally got to the opportunity to apologize because it is one of those things that it may not be in your conscious mind on your day-to-day life, but it is
Mm,
stuff that weighs on you, you know.
mm-hmm.
And if you do have the time to reflect on it, or better yet, to actually correct it, it makes a big difference. So
Yeah. Yeah, it really, really does. I've had things like that happen in my life as well. And as soon as I've gone back and said what I needed to say to apologize, whew, it's a big weight off your shoulders.
exactly,
So,
yeah.
and I think that's good for anything, whether you're going through grief or anything, any other miscommunication or upset that you've had. If you can clear the air and apologize, if that's what you feel you need to do, oh my goodness, do it. Even if it's decades later, because you do carry it around. It
Mhm.
sits there niggling at you
Oh
until
yeah,
you deal with it. Until you deal with it. And
even for
that
men.
even for men, and it does, and I just like to add that all those little niggly things that may or may not be related to grief, they build up over time, so that when you do hit grief and you hit something major in your emotional well-being like grief, everything comes up, and it doesn't matter if it's related to grief or not. All these things that you haven't dealt with start surfacing. So really good to move through those as you can in your lifetime. And I think a lot of us avoid that because it can be really hard or embarrassing, or we're judging ourselves, or we just don't have the opportunity. So thank you again for sharing that story. I'm going to move on to the second question. You've described hitting a point where you weren't afraid to die but were afraid to live. What was the turning point that pulled you out of that place, and how did it become part of your coaching philosophy?
Ooh, um,
I know we're going heavy today.
yeah. You upset my dog. He just
I'm
barked.
sorry. Sorry, buddy.
He's like he can sense my emotions from 2 rooms away. He's
Oh,
coming to check on me now. Oh, you're
yeah.
such a boy. So, denying your mental health challenges, which is what I was doing, and trying to be
hmm
high functioning, trying to be everything to everybody else, being being the dentist, being the team leader, being there for all my friends, um, all those things that like there are distractions that keep you going, but eventually there's a moment when there's nobody there, there's nothing to distract you, and you're facing that demon, whether it's grief or in my case, severe depression that was camouflaged by being able to function. Um, I, the exact moment literally was as simple as, I don't even care if I wake up tomorrow. Like that's, where I was at, and worse yet, I'd actually had darker moments where I had like literally planned out how, like it
Mm-hmm.
was, you know, quite. I'm pretty good at planning, unfortunately. Um, but I just got to this. I almost think it was like an intervention from whatever you care to believe in, God, the universe, your
Mm-hmm.
guardian angel, whatever. But I think that insight was dropped to me. It's like, well, I'm not afraid to die. Why am I afraid to live? And that was
Mm-hmm.
like, boom. Uh, I forget the term. It's like this spiritual reckoning moment. There's a term for it in a movie. Um, a silly movie actually, but it's a really great term where it just changes your whole perception of things.
Mm-hmm.
And that question, why am I afraid to live? You know, and the freeing nature of, well, I'm not afraid to die. So what am I afraid of?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I'm not afraid of death, I mean, like, come on. Why
Mm-hmm.
why why would why should I be afraid to fail? Why shouldn't I try? What, then it kind of got going on questions like, I I don't deserve to be like this. I don't deserve this depression. I don't deserve um, the 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 energy suck. It's a major energy suck. And um, luckily at that time also there was more, the Bell Let's Talk thing. There was eliminate the stigma type movement. So that was a little safer to start talking to
Mm-hmm.
others and people understanding and people actually just going like, yeah, I've been there too, and you just have to keep pushing through. I know some people said it's very unhelpful, but it's not, because you have to keep pushing through,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to realize your own worth and what you and the other part of that is when you're so deep in the moment of like seriously considering suicide, if you're lucky, what you start to think about, and I know some people don't, they actually go through with it. You start to think about who you're going to hurt when you leave, the people that do
Mm-hmm.
matter. And for me,
Mm-hmm.
it was my sons. Like I just knew, like I can't do that to them, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so it was a culmination of who I was going to leave behind and hurt and abandon. Uh, no longer being afraid of death was kind of freeing. It's like, well, if I'm not, you know, if I'm not afraid to die, then who cares? Like, if I'm about to, like my finances are also in trouble at that point. And it's like, if I lose the house, so what? Like,
Mm-hmm.
who cares? Like, no one's gonna care if I'm dead that the house is still there, you know?
Right.
So how do I incorporate that into my coaching? I really work with, I mainly work with men.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Men who've come to the point where they need help and that they know they need help. Like that's where that acknowledgement is key.
Mm-hmm.
And they're the ones through that opening interview set the stage as to how deep they're going to go. And you'd be shocked
Mm-hmm.
when they realize they need help, that threshold, like they'll go like off the screen deep as
Mm-hmm.
to what they want to talk about because they're ready. And
Mm-hmm.
you can't force it, you can't encourage it. It's that they have to literally, you know, come to that realization themselves. But once they're there, I'm like, okay, this is where you agreed to go. Let's go there.
Mm-hmm.
Let's beat the bushes, get the snakes out of the grass. Like what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't use the term no fear because it's a cliche, but once fear can't stop you, what can?
Right.
That's basically how I've incorporated into my coaching. If I hope that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense.
It does. It
Yeah.
really does. And I think the other thing to add too is, as a coach, one of our biggest responsibilities is to create that safe space for
Mhm.
people to face their fears, for people to be brutally honest with themselves, to say the things they've never said out loud, to face the things they've never faced. And um, to be able as a coach to hold space for them to do that is such a rewarding and empowering thing for both of you, right? For both the client and yourself as a coach. I know I feel that with my clients too, just being able to be that safe space for people to work through what they're thinking and feeling. And I think and you can reply to this because having been through it yourself, having someone there who's going to listen and validate everything that you're feeling can be so powerful and a relief. So for you, what was your turning point that made, like, I know you were talking about like, if I'm not afraid to die, why am I afraid to live? But was there someone that you connected with? Was there a therapist, a counselor, a coach, or was it you scrapped your way out of it? How did you move out of that space?
Prior to that point, I had some exposure to personal development through Bob Proctor, another Ontario
Mm-hmm.
Canadian who is unfortunately deceased. And I did some work with him. I did some work with another consulting firm that was big on personal development for dental offices called Dental Boot Camp. They're no longer functioning. So I had some experience as to the power of working with people that lift up.
Mm-hmm.
They don't judge. They don't tell you, no, that's bad. Shame on you. They're like, well, how is thinking about X serving you?
Mm-hmm.
How is plan Y treating you? Is that working out? Okay, well, what did you learn from it? How could you move forward? Um, it's I did get some exposure to Brennan Burchard's work from High
Mm-hmm.
Performance Academy. Um, he's it was actually through another friend that I just came across it, and I read his book, Life's Golden Ticket, which is literally about someone hitting rock bottom and finding a reason to start fighting again.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually the most powerful scene in the book. Um, and that just resonated with me so strongly that I started down the Brennan Burchard rabbit hole of growth and development. It was always, at arm's length. Like I didn't work with him or one of his team like one-on-one or
Mm-hmm.
anything. It was just, free content, inexpensive books, a live event in Santa Clara, California. That was a little more money, obviously. But it's amazing what you can what help you can find if you just go looking for it on
Mm-hmm.
Google, on YouTube, and nowadays we even have like, Chat GPT
Yeah.
and literally do counseling. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not as good as the real deal, but if you can't afford $200 an hour for someone, they'll Chat GPT will help you work through things for free.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, does that answer
It does. It does. Because I think what I wanted to get out of that is that for people who are listening, if they find themselves or someone else that is in that position where they're contemplating suicide or feel they have nothing left to live for, how can they move forward? So it's really like look for those places where you can feel supported. Look for those people or those programs or those books. Try and find that one thing, just one to start, one thing to hold on to move forward. And if you're the person supporting someone, how do you support them and put them in that direction, right?
there?
So I think
There
it's
is
important to, yeah.
there's an important thing I want to share related to this, what we're talking about. There's I don't know who's the original generator of this concept, but if you're feeling helpless, be helpful. You'll find your answers.
Yeah.
And I didn't know this at the time, but as I was slowly getting better, I was still,
Mm-hmm.
moving forward. I started this little project called Defying Depression, and it was a
Mm-hmm.
Facebook page, and I had a money mental
Mm-hmm.
health show, and the content I generated for it, whether it's like a little, quote or a little video or snippet of something. And it was always, I'd post it on my Facebook page for Defying Depression. It was always scheduled out a couple days. And it was amazing how when the day it came out, much of the time, many of the instances, it was exactly what I personally needed that day to see.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually made uh, viewership in 11 countries.
Wow.
For some reason, I was very popular in South Africa. Figured that one out. R- uh, uh, Not like I had millions of followers, but I had quite a few followers of my group from South Africa,
Mm-hmm.
Australia. Like I was all over. It was quite interesting, and it was just an exercise for me to feel better and work on moving forward. I've
Mm-hmm.
since taken it down because I just don't feel genuine doing it now that I'm
Mm-hmm.
not depressed, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. So,
100%. And feeling aligned with how you're doing it. Like I loved that phrase, if you're feeling helpless, be helpful. And in order for that to really feel like it's coming from a place of authenticity, you have to feel aligned with what you're putting out, right?
yeah.
With what you're doing. I felt that with my programming too, right? The things that I've posted, the things I talk about, they've changed over the years and adjusted and shifted based on what's still aligned. Where have I grown past? Right? Because we grow through things. And so
Mhm.
not everything is there to stay forever, whether it's a relationship or a project or anything. We grow through that and we keep moving forward. So knowing when to let that go is really important too. And that's I think trusting your inner guidance on that one to say, you know what, it just didn't feel genuine anymore. So I love that you did that. What a beautiful thing to share with the world.
I really enjoyed it, to be honest. So,
Mhm. Yeah. All right. Next question. Because, we like to keep poking and figuring out what else is going on. High functioning depression often hides behind success and professionalism. As someone who's lived it, what are the signs people should look for when life looks fine on the outside, but isn't on the inside?
is this for people that know the person that's doing the high functioning, or is it for the person experiencing it?
Let's start with the person experiencing it first, and then let's have a look at it from the outside.
It's going to sound like a bit of a cliche, but burnout's a biggie.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're going, you're just, it doesn't matter how much you sleep, how many
Mm-hmm.
vacations you take, you're just
Mm-hmm.
always, your power level is down, would
Yeah.
be a big one. Another one is you're doing everything for everybody else and there's nothing left for you. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's just nothing. You finish your day, you come home, and your answers might be a bottle of wine and Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that might be,
Yeah.
and I know there's a lot of people that live that life and it's unfortunate. And I've been there.
Mm-hmm.
I have the 30 extra pounds to prove it. Uh, but um, no longer connecting with anything that brings joy to you.
Mm-hmm.
Like the joy, even the things that you used to enjoy don't bring you that joy anymore. Those are signs that you're functioning well as far as everyone else is concerned, but you're suffering on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, even today, even like November 20th, 2025, men are still expected largely to suck it up,
Mm-hmm.
push through, keep on grinding, and yes, if there's like an acute reason to push through, like there's a big project with a deadline or whatever, that type of pushing through is okay. But pushing through 24/7, 365 is not is
Mm-hmm.
not okay. That's a big warning sign. When you're just always going and the going is not for you necessarily. It's going for the family, it's going for the job, it's going for um, uh, things you might volunteer for, but there's nothing left for you. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's the big
Yeah. When your tank is completely empty.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that's how you would know it about yourself. How would someone who is around you recognize that you might be in this state of burnout or high functioning depression?
It takes one to know one. That's one thing you might just go, I've been where you are. You don't look happy. That's
Mm-hmm.
one option. But for those that haven't like been through this themselves, someone who uh, seems like they should be happy, like they have all the things they should have, but they're not happy, that'd be a good
Mm-hmm.
good sign. And that unhappiness might show up as simply as being quick-tempered, overreacting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and also you just never see them having fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like actual, like true spontaneous laughter, joy, fulfillment, pride,
Mm-hmm.
those things are just not there.
Yeah.
All the external like metrics are there, but
Mm-hmm.
those soft science bits that are just, you know, don't seem to be there. If they don't seem to be there, they're not there.
Mm-hmm. You said something interesting while you were responding. You talked about they look like they have everything that they should have for to be successful and happy. Where do you think the should plays into the development of depression and burnout?
The should, I should have done this, or I should have this, or don't do that. That's wrong. That's all in the upbringing, right? That's our social programming from anywhere between ages of like 5 and 15, really.
Mm-hmm.
Especially those younger years. That's really impressionable. I think guilt.
Mm-hmm.
It not the guilt of not meeting expectations of those that raised you, um, even from friends. Like take the opposite. Like you and I both made significant career changes to go
Mm-hmm.
after something that's really important to us. How
Yeah.
much pushback did you get from mom and dad, from your best friend? And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of that, um, I know people might not want to hear this. It's them being envious of the fact that you have the guts to go after something that you believe in, whereas there's two things they don't want to lose. One is they don't want to lose you because you're going to outpace them, but also they're just afraid of the fact that, I could have done what she's doing.
Mm-hmm.
I could have wrote that book. I could have done that TED Talk. I could have, but I
Mm-hmm.
didn't because I was afraid to. And
Mm-hmm.
people usually use those words or even admit that much to themselves, but the subconscious desire is to maintain homeostasis, right? To keep
Mm-hmm.
you don't want your friend to do better than you. You don't, I mean, you wish them well, obviously, but I mean, you don't want them to leave the company that you're both in and go start their side hustle full time because
Mm-hmm.
you could have done that.
Yeah.
So,
I think I think those are really great points. And I think that sometimes those are things that are underlying that we don't actually acknowledge. I think also what plays into it is the fear of what happened. Like, I know for me, when it was a family thing, it was like, what if it doesn't work? What happens? And their fear for my financial safety, my financial security, my happiness, my joy, right? There was that love and stuff that comes into it, but it's still fear based, right? It's still fear
yeah.
based. And I think when you get down deep into it as well, it's a different set of values on some level, right? In your core
Mhm.
values, what is important to you can be very different. And one of the things that I've learned, having been an entrepreneur and putting myself out there, is we are a very weird, rare breed to be the ones to go out and take such big, significant risks and to put ourselves out there with the whole thought of it could completely flop and I could lose everything, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Mm.
And not everybody is like, I think they said there's like 70% of the population is not wired that way and 30% of the population is. So when you're stepping out into a new area, especially entrepreneurship, there is that sense of I'm not I'm afraid, but I'm going to do it anyway because I really want to do this. I want to give it a go. I think I can do this. And then there's those who are like, no way. I want the security. I want I want that regular paycheck. I want that regular job. I want to know where the next money, piece of
Yeah.
point
Yeah.
is coming from. And I think that's a lot of where the should can come in too, is what you should do depending on what your core values are as well. So I know we used entrepreneurship as just an example, but core values for anything, right? If you're you're a VP of some big company and you're not happy, look at your core values compared to the core values of the company, compared to the core values of the people around you. And then when was the last time you sat down and looked at yours? Right? Like what really is important to you. And I think that's when you see people making those huge, gigantic shifts in life, they're like, I'm selling everything and going to Bora Bora. that's when they've done the work and gone, oh yeah, I need to change what I want to do, or they're going through a crisis. It could be either or
Yeah,
in
one or
that
the other.
situation. But yeah, no, it's very interesting when you start looking at the shoulds. I have a really good friend of mine who says, um, uh, stop shoulding all over yourself, because I think we put so much pressure on ourselves to be the way we should, which, as you said, is from our upbringing. It's what society dictates. It's what we subconsciously bring into who we think we're supposed to be. And then we judge ourselves when we're not meeting those levels. And we judge ourselves even more when other people are judging us too, right? Because internally we may go, oh, I'm not doing the best I can. But when someone else says, step it up, sister, or whatever, then you start it can be very discombobulating on the inside. But the shoulds are something that, get rid of the shoulds. Get rid of the shoulds if you can. And even, I'm going to just circle this back to the whole, processing grief. There are a lot of shoulds out there that are
Oh yeah.
not spoken about how you should be doing grief. And I think everybody has their own rule book of their shoulds for grief, and how they do it will be different from their sister, from their mother, from their brother, from their friend, from their colleague. Everybody's different. And so there's a lot of self-judgment and a lot of external judgment when you're going through the grieving process. And that's one of the things that I work on with my clients, is very much get rid of the shoulds. How do you want to do this? What works best for you? How do you want to grieve? What aligns with what's important to you? So yeah, I know that kind of went around in a circle, but I wanted to just add that in, because the grief journey is like any other journey that you're going to go on. When you get married, what do you want that to look like? When you have children, what kind of a parent would you like to be? When you're grieving, how do you want to grieve? Right? There's so many different things. How do you want to show up at work? How do you want to, how do you want your life to be? And I think so often we get stuck in what we should be doing instead of what we want to do, what's really truly authentic for us. And that also leads to a lot of the depression, like you were saying, depression, burnout, and trying to hit those high levels of expectations of others, and ones that we put on ourselves as well, based on everything that we've been taught. So
Mhm.
I love that. I love that conversation. All right, we're going to go on to the next. Is there anything else you want to add to that before I move
No,
on?
no, that
Okay.
was good.
So, in the next question I've got for you is, in your coaching work, you help people rebuild clarity, energy, and courage. Love that. After burnout or emotional collapse. What are the first steps someone can take when they feel completely stuck or overwhelmed?
First steps when they feel stuck or overwhelmed. I think the ultimate first step is the realization that you are overwhelmed or you are stuck or
Mm-hmm.
you're basically that what you're doing isn't working. Making that connection that the status quo is not working. That's a big step. From there, there's the whole wh- what are what are the things in life that have to keep going while you do your healing journey?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's certain things you can pause. There's certain things you can, delegate to someone else. But there are certain things like for example, if you are well, I mean you're a mother with a daughter.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what your healing journey is doing, you have to make sure your daughter was provided for, cared for, and
Mm-hmm.
emotional support. So, and that can be a big demand when your tank is empty, but it
Yes.
still has to happen. Um, I want to jump right into get a coach,
Mm-hmm.
but I know that's not going to be everyone's first movement. Like there's a ladder, right? You don't want them to
Mm-hmm.
jump 5 rungs and start working with a coach. Realizing that you need help.
Mm-hmm.
The status quo isn't acceptable. You have to realize that you need help. Then there's actually accepting help,
Mm-hmm.
like being willing to look at things differently, to challenge core values that got you into this mess in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then I would suggest go to the school of YouTube. type in exactly what you're feeling, what you're facing, what you're fighting, and you're going to start get exposed to other ways of thinking, right? Other people going through the same problems you've gone through. Because I mean, yes, we're all unique, but there's lots of things we all have similar fights.
Yes.
And there you'd be surprised at the openness and vulnerability of people online who just want to help other people get through what they went through.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this, I mean, everyone has an internet connection pretty much these days. Everyone has an iPhone or an Android. You can access YouTube and start getting some useful help. And yes, you have to put your thinking cap on and go, okay, well, no, that approach is not right. This person is a little out to left field, you know. But you'll find people that are like you going through what you went through and found solutions that will give you inspiration to find your own.
Mm-hmm.
Start reading books on the subjects that you're struggling with. Then, you know, if you're really, if you're warmed up, you're primed that,
Mm-hmm.
hey, yeah, there's better ways of doing this. And yes, I need help. I'm willing to accept help. Then start shopping for a coach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A coach is going to basically go from linear growth to whew,
Right.
that's what a coach is going to do because you now have someone on your team who's trained to help you with whatever it is you're dealing with. So
Mm-hmm.
that in a nutshell would be like a nice natural evolution. And also it doesn't matter with the exception of the coach, everything else is basically free or affordable. You know, a book,
Mm-hmm.
an
Mm-hmm.
online course might be anywhere between 10 and $100.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you know, so I mean the barrier to entry is not that bad. The only true barrier to entry in this day and age for anything is your mind. Like you have to go,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I want to go do that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to go experience because there's again that stigma. Oh, you're one of those self-help people, like there's something wrong with you. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's still out there today. And personally, I feel sorry for the people that think that way because they're missing out on so much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree. I agree that I think when we are so submerged in the personal self-help and personal growth industry and healing, we're surrounded by it. So for me, I'm like, oh yeah, everybody knows about it, right? Everybody's part of this until you start talking to people who are not. And you're like, oh my goodness, I need to actually start at the beginning. And because I've been within this field for decades, it just seems natural, right, to do these
Mhm.
things and to talk about
Yeah.
these things. But I find that when I'm out doing the grief workshops and doing the education workshops and teaching people about, emotions and vibration and how to heal and what they, what is going to, how they can figure out what works for them and what doesn't, people kind of look at you like, wow, that's out there. So I think that low barrier to entry is incredible. But I think sometimes people just need to know that it's there because I think there's so many people out there who don't.
Mhm.
And so it's like getting that information out there. So yeah, it is a great place to start. I know that's where I started my journey too. I was all about reading the books and doing the journaling and listening to the podcasts and doing all of that. But it came to a point where I could only take myself so far. There
Yes.
was still that feeling of I'm missing something, I'm still stuck, I'm not where I want to be. And that's where a coach really becomes powerful because it helps you dig even deeper. It gets you into those blind spots. It brings a mirror up where you may not want to be facing anything, right? And
Oh yeah.
that's scary, and that's why our safe space that we create is so important. um but being able to find a coach that works with you, I know we talked about this yesterday when we were on the live, is finding that person that's aligned with you, whether it's you, me, or somebody else. It's really, really important that when you start looking for a coach or looking for a therapist or a counselor, whatever route works for you, that you find the modality that works and you find the person that aligns. So you may need to try a few different things, and that's okay. Give yourself permission to find what works for you and be selfish in
Mhm.
finding the person that works for you. Because if you settle for someone that you're not 100% comfortable with, you're healing your progress, you're moving forward is going to be stunted because you're not going to show up the way that you need to in order to make those strides forward. So yeah. All right, into the last question for today. Let's see where we go with this one. All right, so Tom, now host a podcast and a coaching practice focused on finding freedom, purpose, and authenticity after 50. What do you wish more people understood about reinventing themselves later in life, especially after loss or a major upheaval?
Life has its phases or stages, however you want to look at it.
Mhm.
And there's talking about should haves, like there's a lot of pressure, oh, you should be married by this time. You should have your 2.8 kids by this time. You should have your Freedom 55, well, 55. Not happening for me, by the way. Uh, um, and then you should have your golden years and your platinum years and 60 is the new 40 and all this stuff. Reinvention is vital. Um, and accepting change gracefully, which I'm still working on. Um, Letting go of things like, your ego that always has to be right. That caused so much strife in my 30s.
Mhm.
Now I look back at it going, why did I even care? Why did I even care what that person thought of me? Like,
Mhm.
so reinvention I think it's natural. I think it's part of your personal evolution as you're going from your 30s to your 40s to your 50s. Um, Defying depression evolved from something that I was something I was really deeply ingrained and involved in to that's no longer where I want to do. Then I lean towards more like adventures and my creative outlets of photography and videography. And that kind of evolved to now I want to talk about, freedom after 50 chance. There's a lot of men entering their 50s that, they're now divorced, their kids are growing up, they're not quite grandfathers yet, or maybe they are. Um, and I'm like, yeah, I go, you don't have to be what society expects you to be. Like I mean, if you listen to any single episode of my podcast, you'll see that I'm basically a loner. I mean, I have friends, don't get me wrong, but I'm basically a loner. I live uh, an hour's drive from the nearest, quote unquote major town. To get to the corner store is a 16-mile round trip. Okay, like I'm out there. I'm literally, that's why it's called out here. I'm out here. And uh, with again, with the advent of Starlink, I'm connected to the world, high-speed broadband in the middle of nowhere. I can send my message out to the world, yet still live my life out in the country with my
Mhm.
dog. I see my son and the grandkids and all that stuff. But reinvention, like, yeah, it's a great thing, and you got to give yourself permission to go, okay, what do I want to do now?
Mhm.
You know, I certainly don't want to be in the coffee club in the in the food court at the mall.
Mhm.
Uh, I mean, for some guys, that's their social contact, but like for me, I got to do something with much more impact, and that's why I want to coach and help people anywhere from their 30s up to their 50s, um, uh, you know, reach that next level that they're aiming for.
Mhm.
Clarify what that is, find the energy and the courage to go after it, have the productivity skills and the influence to make those dreams come true. That's the tenets of certified high performance coaching. And I try to embody what I'm coaching.
Mhm.
And it makes me a better coach. It also makes me a better person. It's a win-win. Reinvention, you have to. Like
Mhm.
like that's one thing that bugs me about uh, political ads, especially in the States. In 1932, he said this, and it's now 1970. And it's like they're not the same person that said that.
Mhm.
I mean, even not that I like Trudeau, I don't like him, but that blackface thing. It's
Mhm.
like he was in college. He's
Mhm.
not the same person he was. Like none of us are, right? Like
Yeah.
you got to kind of like give him a mulligan on the blackface thing. It's not like he was trying to, hurt people doing that or whatever. Um, so yeah, reinvention is it's the spice of life as far as I'm
Mhm.
concerned.
It is. And And having gone through my own reinvention for a few times, actually, and right now just absolutely feeling like life is just beginning again for me. And I'll be 55 at Christmas. So a couple, 6 weeks from now, I'll be 55. And I don't feel like I'm heading to retirement. I feel like life is just starting.
Same
And
here.
it's a really empowering feeling. But along that journey, it's letting go of those identities of who you were before and grieving the loss of who you were, letting yourself move through those, that person, that identity served me well. Like, so in my 30s and 40s, I was a brand new mom. I was raising a daughter, and then I was divorced. And it's like your focus is on, keeping this child alive because that's
Yeah.
what you did. And being
Yeah.
able to provide for them. And then as she grew up and got older and more self-sufficient, I was able to then look at where am I and what am I doing and what's important to me. And I think our focus is shift as we go through our lifetime too. Like biologically, we are designed to procreate in our, anywhere from mid-teens to, although we don't encourage that now, but biologically from the mid-teens right through into our 30s, that tends to be the big gap of get married, find the job, have the kids, do all the things. And as we get into our 40s and 50s and even into our 60s, that's where we're like, hey, now I can actually focus on what's important to me, like really, truly what's important to me. At least that's what we're finding the trend. I think more and more people actually, now that we're talking about it so much, are finding that in their 20s and 30s now, right? They're really like, I'm going to actually do what I want to do now. And there's not
Mhm.
so much of that, my parents' generation, whereas you went, you found a job, you stayed in that job for 35 years, you retired, you got a pension, whether you were happy with that job or not,
Yes.
right? And in our grandparents' generation, it was even more instilled. So I find I'm in that bridging generation where it's like we've we're the generation that kind of went, oh, we can have a whole bunch of different jobs, and there is no job security anymore, and you're not going to work in the same job unless you're working with the government or some long-standing company. But even now we've seen long-standing companies fold, and nothing is guaranteed anymore. So there is a more of a push and a switch to find what makes you happy, do what makes you happy, follow your passion, not follow your passion to the detriment of not being able to live, but do the things that build you up. And that's why we're seeing this mass exodus, especially in the female population in the 50s that are in like high power jobs, and they are leaving in droves because they're like, I did all of this and I got up here. And there are a lot of women who are really happy there. I'm not going to discount that. There's a lot of women who are like, what am I doing here? This is not fulfilling to me. I did, I followed all the ladder and I did all the things, but I'm not being personally fulfilled. And I think you can speak for the male population is that the same thing happens there too. And you're seeing a lot of men redirecting their careers, branching out on their own, trying to do something else. Um, and I think there's that big question that comes out a lot is if you were on your deathbed, what do you want to look back and do? You want to have a whole bunch of regrets? Or do you want to say, I lived my life? I reinvented. I became the person I really, really wanted to be. I followed my bliss. I followed the things and did the things that were really ingrained in what I'm all about, rather than going, oh, wow, I really wish I'd taken that trip, or, oh, I really wish I'd tried, writing that book, or I really wish I'd opened that company and whatever it is. So I love that you talked about that idea of reinvention over time. And with reinvention comes grief and pushback from the people around you, right? If you're going to be doing
Mhm.
something that's really important to you, you may have a partner that's like, are you kidding? What's that going to do to us? And you have to get them on board. Or some people make the decision that if they're not on board, off you go. And that's why, like, I think Oprah's recently been talking about the gray divorce. More and more people in their 50s and 60s are getting divorced because they're just not compatible anymore. So, yeah. All right, Tom, this has been an amazing conversation. Is there anything else you want to add to what we've been talking about before we go into the lovely offer that you have for everybody?
I just wanted to touch on like you and I both grew up in Ontario. We went in the
Mhm.
same school board, not the same school board, but like the education
System.
curriculum system
Hmm.
was basically the same. Like the death of my brother, my dad's car accident, my mom's death, Alzheimer's with my dad. Um, School really could have done a much better job
Mm-hmm.
teaching about life skills, like
Mm-hmm.
how to grieve, how to deal with a patient, not a patient, a parent. That's the dentist in me. How to deal with a parent who is starting to lose their mind.
Mm-hmm.
How to comfort them. How to interact with them. How to process your feelings on it. Like it was. I was so wishing that I had like a user's manual, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And it was actually at coaching conferences, chatting between, on breaks with other coaches and stuff. I met people that they could see that something was amiss or whatever. They come over and ask. And so this particular one, it was my dad in the Alzheimer's diagnosis, and it was like we had just put him into the long-term care facility, and this more, I'll say, spiritually free uh, lady, who's a coach, but more non-traditional philosophical.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, she goes, yeah, it's really, really hard to watch your parents go through that. But she said to me, you have to understand that they've already begun their transition to their next phase, and what you have here is what's still hasn't moved on.
Mm-hmm.
And it just helped me feel better that, yeah, my dad is moving on to his next phase of his existence.
Mm-hmm.
There's a part of him that's still here who still has things to do
Mm-hmm.
and actually his most powerful lesson he gave me, even in the last few weeks of his life, that I didn't realize until much later, was every time he bumped into anyone, like say we were going down the hallway, whatever, that's my son with the big smile
Mm-hmm.
on his face. And I finally realized he was trying to teach me I should always be proud of myself, always be proud of who I am.
Mm-hmm.
That was his last gift to me, because it's always something I've always been a little, introspective, a little introverted, you know, not never been, hey, I'm here,
Yeah.
never been that type of person. And I'm still not, but I'm more proud of who I am and what I do. And I'm no longer, like, shame and fear aren't things that, I mean, they still exist, but they're not the
Mm-hmm.
dominant things controlling who I want to be. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was a powerful lesson from that lady. But yeah, if the school system had, life 101, 201, 301,
Mm-hmm.
even, you know, that would be really, really nice. That's this, because so many people, they lose their mom, their dad, their brother, their sister, their cousin, and it's
Mm-hmm.
their first real sense of loss.
They have no words. They have no
And I
strength.
mean, you know how it goes with
Mm-hmm.
our customs in Canada, and I guess it's similar in the States and probably Europe, is like there's the death, like the traumatic event. There's all the pouring of social support up into the social after the funeral and the wake, and then
Nothing.
nothing.
Mm-hmm. And
It's that
that's where we need
nothing
it
where
the
we need
most.
help, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so
Exactly. Oh my goodness, I teach about that all the time. And
yeah.
it's so true. And I think you hit on a really good spot too about we don't teach our kids about grief. We don't teach our adults about grief. We don't it should be part of the curriculum around these are the things that, could happen in life. And I think we avoid talking about grief because it's hard. And our brains are wired to avoid it because they see it as a threat. I could go into a whole podcast about that
we
one.
we we also avoid our mortality. As
Mm-hmm.
far as we know, on Earth, we're only here
Mm-hmm.
for so long. And if we
Yeah.
actually embraced it, I think we'd be more open to taking risks, more
Mm-hmm.
open to actually doing the things we want to do, because there's no proof we've ever come back. I mean, I know there's philosophies that we're reincarnated, and I really like those ones. But
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, this version of us is only here once.
Yeah.
Make the
Yeah.
make yourself the best version you can possibly be. Get a
Mm-hmm.
coach.
Exactly. There we go. Our public service announcement for
Yeah.
today. I agree. I think be the best person that you can be. And grief is part of your journey. It's part of everybody's journey on some level. Whether it's you're failing a test at school or you're losing a parent, like there's such a huge continuum of what grief can be. I think teaching people and giving them the words and the permission to grieve. I know in our, like as a little aside, my colleague Leah and I, we run the camps for girls called Unshakable Me, and they're teenage girls, 12 to 16. This past summer, we did a session on grief and we did a session on trauma because these girls are experiencing it, whether it's parents getting divorced, they're not doing well in school, they're losing their friends, they're failing, like their poor self-image, all of these things. And it was amazing to watch light bulbs go off as they're like, that's what that was. Because they didn't understand what they were feeling and experiencing. So giving words to that, giving education to that is so important. Thank you very much for touching on that, because I think that's a really great way to wrap up today's conversation, is the
Mhm.
importance of the validation and the support. So what did you want to share with our listeners? I think you have something that you want to share with them.
Yeah, for anyone who's interested, that's a listener of your podcast, as long as they take action before the end of the month, by
Mhm.
November 30th. So let's say if it's December 1st, you're too late. Um, basically, I would be willing to do a special version of my clarity, energy, and courage modules for my certified high performance coaching program as a trifecta. Uh,
Mm.
there'd be three calls where we basically look at what you want to get clear on, how you're going to bolster your energy to act on the things you want to get clear on, and then look at your courage, what's holding you back from actually going after what you want. Um, it's kind of like three legs of a stool. And if any one of
Mhm.
those is missing, falls over. So anyone that wants to do that, basically, if they want to reach out to Tom at revolutionize.me and say, hey, I
Mhm.
listened to Grief, the shitstorm you never signed up for. I want to take advantage of your three free coaching calls. We'll set up times and make it happen.
That would be great. Thank you so much. And I will put all of Tom's information in the notes below. So please, please, please reach out to him and take advantage of this. It'll be an amazing 3 sessions with Tom. So thank you so much for being here with us today, Tom. I really
Oh, it's fun.
appreciate
My
it.
pleasure.
Love the conversation. And for all of you listening, if you found value in it, please like and subscribe to the podcast, and also share the podcast with anyone that you feel would benefit from listening. So thanks again for joining us today, and stay tuned for our next episode of Grief, the emotional shitstorm you never signed up for.